From the dusty outback to the grand galleries of the world, Sidney Nolan painted Australia's soul like no one else. And today, we uncover the stories behind his most iconic masterpieces. Sir Sidney Robert Nolan was born on the 22nd of April 1917 in Carlton, a working-class suburb of Melbourne, Australia. The first of 4 children, he was the son of Sidney Nolan Sr., a tram driver who once tried his luck at gold prospecting, and Dora Sutherland, a homemaker of strong Irish-Australian heritage. The family later moved to St Kilda, a seaside suburb known for its amusement parks, beaches, and bohemian edge. The carnival lights, faded glamour, and gritty urban life of St Kilda seeped into Nolan's imagination, planting seeds for the surreal juxtapositions he would later explore in his art. From a young age, Nolan showed a restless curiosity and a preference for drawing over schoolwork. His parents valued practical skills over academic study, so when he left school at 14, it wasn't a scandal but an economic necessity. He worked at Fairfield Hats, designing eye-catching advertising displays. Though commercial, the work taught him about composition, color blocking, and visual rhythm, lessons that would echo in his paintings. Nolan studied part-time at Brighton Technical School and Prahran Technical College, focusing on design and crafts. But perhaps his most important education came from his own initiative. Evenings were often spent at the Melbourne Public Library, where he devoured books on philosophy, poetry, and modern European art movements. By 1934, he was taking night classes at the National Gallery of Victoria Art School. It was here that Nolan encountered Paul Klee's whimsical abstractions, Picasso's fractured modernism, and Laszlo Moholy-Nagy's Bauhaus experiments. He absorbed the lesson that art could be a personal language, a means to translate inner experience, memory, and myth into form and color. In 1938, Nolan met John and Sunday Reid, influential patrons who welcomed a circle of avant-garde artists and writers to their home Haida in Bulleen, Melbourne. The Haida circle included Albert Tucker, Joy Hester, Arthur Boyd, and John Percival. It was an environment of artistic freedom, radical politics, and emotional entanglements. Nolan's relationship with Sunday Reid was both romantic and creative. She encouraged him to push boundaries, to merge personal narrative with broader Australian mythology. Haida became not just a refuge, but a crucible where some of Australia's most daring mid-century art took shape. During World War II, Nolan became associated with the modernist literary journal Angry Penguins, edited by Max Harris. The magazine championed experimental art and literature. In 1944, the Ern Malley hoax shook the Australian cultural scene. 2 poets invented a fictitious modernist and sent his poems to Harris, who published them. While some saw this as an embarrassment, Nolan was fascinated by the blurred boundaries between truth and fabrication. He designed the cover for the Ern Malley edition, seeing in the hoax an affirmation that myth-making was central to art. In 1942, Nolan enlisted in the army, but was assigned to guard duty in country Victoria. Restless and frustrated, he deserted in 1944 and went into hiding at Haida. This period became the most creatively fertile of his life. He began the Ned Kelly series, reimagining the 19th century bushranger as a stark, black-helmeted figure standing in vast Australian landscapes. The helmet, a simple square with a slit for eyes, became a visual metaphor for isolation, defiance, and the outsider's gaze. In First Class Marksman, 1946, Kelly's form is framed against a luminous sky, suggesting both heroism and vulnerability. Nolan's use of flat color fields, luminous blues, searing ochres, and grassy greens, stripped the landscape to essentials, intensifying its psychological charge. These works were not documentary history but modern myth, blending outlaw legend with Nolan's own feelings of exile. By the late 1940s, Nolan was traveling through Central Australia, where he encountered the parched beauty of the outback and the resilience of its people. His desert paintings capture shimmering heat, skeletal trees, and red earth, often under a bleached white sky. He created cycles of works on Burke and Wills, doomed explorers whose journey ended in tragedy, and on Eliza Fraser, a shipwreck survivor whose story mingled fact and legend. These narratives allowed Nolan to explore themes of survival, folly, and the collision of cultures. His Paradise Garden series, 1968-70, an epic sequence of 1,320 panels, wove together imagery of flowers, birds, mythical figures, and dream landscapes, creating a visual symphony about the human search for an unattainable Eden. In the 1950s and 60s, Nolan based himself in London, though he continued to paint Australian subjects. He exhibited internationally, gaining recognition for his unique fusion of modernist abstraction and narrative painting. By the time he was knighted in 1981, Nolan's work hung in major institutions worldwide: the Tate Gallery in London, the Museum of Modern Art in New York, and the National Gallery of Australia. His ability to create imagery both intensely local and universally resonant marked him as one of the defining painters of the 20th century. Nolan's personal life was marked by both intimacy and estrangement. His affair with Sunday Reed ended painfully, and in 1948 he married Cynthia Reed. Her suicide in 1976 was a devastating blow. 2 years later, Nolan married Mary Boyd, linking him to another famous Australian art family. In his final decades, Nolan continued to paint prolifically, exploring Greek myths, European history, and the horrors of war. He never lost his appetite for experimentation, incorporating collage, photography, and unconventional materials into his later works. He died in London on the 28th of November 1992, aged 75, and was buried in Highgate Cemetery. Nolan produced over 10,000 works in his lifetime, making him one of the most prolific modern artists. His Ned Kelly helmet remains an instantly recognizable symbol of Australian art, referenced in everything from fashion to film. He redefined how Australia saw itself, not as a derivative outpost of Europe, but as a place with its own myths, landscapes, and visual language. His influence can be traced in the works of contemporary Australian artists, photographers, and filmmakers who continue to grapple with the intersection of history, identity, and the land. Even decades after his death, retrospectives of his work draw huge audiences. The National Gallery of Australia's permanent display of the Ned Kelly series remains one of its most visited collections, testifying to the enduring power of Nolan's vision. In the end, Nolan was not just a painter of images, but a creator of national mythology, a man who turned the Australian landscape into a stage where history, legend, and personal memory played out in vivid, unforgettable color. If you enjoyed exploring the extraordinary life of Sidney Nolan, hit that subscribe button and join me for more deep dives into the legends who shaped art, history, and culture.